Hi family, welcome back to another reaction video. Guys, a lot has been happening in US. A lot, like 10 is happening to US at once. Guys, okay, today we'll be checking out what Germans think about the current situation in the US. This is from Feli from Germany. Guys, if this is your first time meeting me, my name is Naza and you're welcome to today's video. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being a part of this family. So guys, I really can't wait to check out what Germans think about this. Like, guys, in the course of this video, if you love my reaction, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like, comment, share, subscribe, and guys, let's do this. Yeah.
For the last 6 months, the United States has been on German news almost every single day. And many of you guys have been wondering what Germans think about the current situation in the US. Well, let's find out.
Yes. Let's find out.
Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio since 2016. Now, as the leader of the free world and one of Germany's most important allies, the US has always played a pretty big role in German news and in public debate. I mean, a lot of the things that happen in the US, both politically and economically, have immediate effects on Germany and the rest of the world. Additionally, most Germans consume a lot of American pop culture. We listen to American music, watch American movies and TV shows, and adore American celebrities. So even the more lighthearted headlines from the US get reported on in Germany on a regular basis. But since the inauguration of the new US president 6 months ago, it's been at a whole new level. It's pretty much every day now that headlines from the US are taking over German newspapers and broadcasting. And it's no wonder. From controversial salutes at the inauguration itself, which now seems like forever ago, to Doge cuts, ICE raids, nationwide protests, tariffs, measles outbreaks, Harvard suing the government, the big beautiful bill, to alligator Alcatraz and the Epstein list. A lot has happened in the last 6 months. And the list goes on, of course. So what do Germans think about all of this? And has it changed people's perception of the US? That's what this video is gonna try to answer. Now, of course, I can't speak for every single German out there. Opinions vary, obviously. But what I can do is show you how the German media has been reporting about the US and what the overall tone has been. We can take a look at surveys that have been conducted about this topic. And I actually asked my German followers to share their views, so we can take a look at some quotes and overall tendencies there. Before we get into all of this, just a quick disclaimer. You're more than welcome to leave your personal opinions in the comments below, but I'm asking each and every one of you to stay objective, meaning stick to facts as much as you can, and please stay respectful with each other. Also, please note that me reading and summarizing these headlines and people's opinions to you doesn't necessarily mean that I personally agree with them. This video is not about my personal opinion on any of this. It's to give you an overview of how Germany and Germans overall are talking about the US right now. That being said, let's start by taking a look at some of the cover pages of German print media from the last few months that were about the US. America's new face, the end of an era. Under Donald Trump, the US no longer wants to be the leader of the Western world. Europe must defend itself with nuclear weapons if necessary. And Donald Trump's brutal politics and the consequences for Europe. This was on the cover of the magazine Der Spiegel in March. They're one of the most reputable news publications in Germany, and they lean slightly left politically. Related articles in this issue were the blackmailer of the free world. The US has led Western democracies for 80 years, but for Donald Trump, it's not about allies and values, it's about power and money. It's a move toward autocracy. Or America is our opponent now. Donald Trump is dismantling the existing world order. Big Brother USA is leaving its allies defenseless. Now Europeans must become strong on their own. Der Spiegel also had these cover stories in the last few months. The Emperor, The Robber Knight, I think is how you would translate it, how Donald Trump destroys trade and is making the world poorer. The Shadow President, the uncanny power of J.D. Vance. Game Over, how Trump's closest advisor failed himself.
Game Over.
The World's Policeman, his best enemy. And this one from June says, do you still want to go there? How Germans are turning away from the US. From dream destination to no-go zone. The US is a country people long to visit.
Guys, a lot is happening. From dream destination to no-go zone. Like, stay clear. Don't go there. Like, a lot is happening. A lot is happening. And it seems as if US is falling day by day. No!
But since Donald Trump took office, tourists have been staying away. More and more Germans are asking themselves, do we still want to go there? And other articles in the June issue were titled, The American Ex-Boyfriend. Trump is the perverted American dream. Or Attack on America's Democracy, Soldiers Against Citizens, referring to the protests in LA. Focus, another big magazine that's considered to be more conservative politically, has had covers like The Brotherly Kiss. Donald Trump is making Vladimir Putin the most powerful dictator of the 21st century. What can be done? Or The Trump Chaos. No one can trust this US president. What does he want? And what will happen next? Or The World in Flames. The Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, FAZ, a daily newspaper that's also considered to be more center-right politically, has run articles like, Trump's gold standard means the end of academic freedom. Donald Trump has issued an executive order setting out new rules for scientific work. But behind the rhetoric of reform lies a plan to bring American research under government control. Or this one titled Insult as a Strategy, or Expansion of the Arbitrary Zone. Under Trump, the definition of a criminal, especially a criminal migrant, is being adapted to the needs of capitalism and growing authoritarianism. And the cruelty of some measures is being openly displayed. Another newspaper, Die Zeit, which comes out once a week and leans more to the left politically, has had headlines like, without America, the bond between the US and Europe is dissolving, and for Putin, things could hardly have turned out better. What does this mean for Germany and its neighbors? Or where's the resistance? Is Trump making us poor? Is the US heading towards a civil war? The Trump administration sees large sections of its own population as the enemy within. It is turning against them in order to defend the supposed true America. The magazine Stern had this cover in March, The Axis of Evil, Threat of War for Europe. And even Germany's biggest newspaper, the tabloid Bild, which is considered center-right to right-wing politically, and is known for its bold, provocative, and often populist headlines, has been mostly critical of the Trump administration. In this recap of Trump's first 100 days in office, they point out that reality caught up with him, and he wasn't able to live up to some of his biggest campaign promises, such as ending the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. They also regularly point out how the course of the current administration is a threat to Europe, and I've come across headlines like Donald Trump's embarrassing math blunder, referring to Trump saying that he'll lower drug prices by 1,000%, or Epstein partied at Trump's wedding. But there are also a few Bild articles like this one that's titled What We Need to Learn from Trump. The only outlets in Germany that straight up celebrate the Trump administration are publications like the far-right magazine Kompakt, which is also known to be very supportive of the German far-right party AfD. They've had covers like Frieden, mir, Peace, which translates to peace, peace, peace. With Trump and Putin comes spring. Or Great, why Elon Musk believes in Germany's future, referring to his support of the AfD. And the right-wing conservative outlet Cicero has had headlines like Big Beautiful Bill, why Trump's tax bill is not a catastrophe for the US. Or Unrest in LA. Trump wants to send a signal. What's wrong about that? By the way, if you want to know how other countries report about current developments in the US, Ground News always lets you filter for international location, and that will show you how news outlets in India, France or Australia have covered a news story, such as this one about Columbia University and the Trump administration reaching a deal over funding. But my favorite feature on Ground News is probably the bias distribution. We can see that this story was reported on slightly more often in left-leaning media, even though overall the distribution was pretty even, and it even lets us compare the different angles that left-leaning, center, and right-leaning outlets have approached this story from. On the left, we see headlines like, Columbia protected its funding and sacrificed its freedom. Or, the Columbia deal isn't great, but it dodged a bigger disaster. While right-leaning outlets make it sound a lot more like a victory. Trump administration reaches agreement with Columbia on racial discrimination. Ground News also shows us how reliable each outlet is in regards to factuality and who they're owned by, which helps reveal any potential agendas or conflicts of interest. Ground News is a relatively new addition to the news world, and in my opinion, it's finally adding the transparency that we've all desperately been longing for in today's world of algorithms and echo chambers. That's also why I love the blind spot feed, because here you can see stories that were disproportionately covered by only one side of the political spectrum. And I think it's important to break out of your own bubble and see what the other side is talking about. So if you're like me and you're struggling with information overload when you look at the news and sometimes don't even know what to trust anymore, Ground News makes it so much easier to compare coverage and quickly understand the bigger picture. So I can only recommend it. Since they don't run any ads, they work on a subscription model, but with my link ground.news/Feli or with my QR code right here, you can now save 40% on the Vantage plan, so almost half price off, and you can use Ground News on your computer, as a browser extension, or as an app on your phone. So be sure to check it out, and a big shout out to Ground News for partnering with me on this video. So overall, it's safe to say that the vast majority of German media reports related to the recent developments in US politics have been critical and often even alarming. But how do the German people feel? To answer that, there are actually a few surveys we can look at. YouGov conducted a survey in March of 2025 where they asked whether people had a positive or a negative opinion of Trump. About 77% of Germans answered that they had a negative opinion, 18% said they had a positive opinion, and about 5% said they didn't know. The most critical responses could be found among people over 60 years old, where up to 85% of them said that they had a negative opinion of Trump. The same survey was also did in other European countries with pretty similar results. The highest approval rating for Trump can be found in Italy with 21%, whereas in Denmark, almost all people, 94%, seem to have a negative opinion of him. Now, what's interesting is that in Germany, the number of people who have a positive opinion of Trump somewhat lines up with the amount of people who voted for the far-right party AfD in Germany's last election. Now, we don't have any data that shows us whether these people are actually the same as AfD, these, but I did.
Guys, wait, in a comment section, I've been hearing of AfD, right-wing AfD. Please, guys, what is AfD in Germany? I really love to know what it stands for. If it's abbreviation for something, or please, guys, tell me the meaning, please. I really love to know.
Find this survey, also from March of 2025, that shows people's party affiliation and whether their opinion of Trump had improved or worsened since his inauguration. Light blue shows that people's opinion of him has improved, dark blue means it stayed just as good, gray means just as bad, and red means it's gotten worse. And as you can see, the only party that shows a big chunk of approval or even increased approval is among people who affiliate themselves with the AfD. In all other groups, the majority of people claim that their opinion has stayed just as bad or even worsened. And when asked about whether the US can be considered a reliable NATO partner at the moment, 75% of people responded with no. Another survey that I came across asked Germans about their overall image of the US, aside from the US election. This one was conducted back in December 2024, so after the US elections, but before the new administration took office. Most people, 48% to be exact, said that they had a rather positive image of the US. but 43% said they had a rather negative image of the US, which is a lot of people. And when asked whether their image of the US had gotten better, stayed the same, or gotten worse due to the most recent elections, about 57% said that it's gotten worse, while only 6% said it's gotten better. When asked if they believe that Trump will be a threat to democracy in the US, about 72% said yes. Now, again, that survey was conducted back in December before Trump even took office, but I think it shows a pretty clear picture. And I can say that this definitely lines up with my personal experience as well. Here in the US, when a political topic comes up, it truly is a 50-50 guessing game whether you and the other person will agree. But in Germany, I feel like it's generally expected that everyone you talk to views the Trump administration critically. I've even had doctors in Germany bring up US politics as small talk while they were examining me, you know, because they knew I lived in the US, so it's an easy topic to bring up, but none of them have ever asked me about my political stance first, because they just assume that we agree anyways. Okay, so we've looked at the numbers, but why is it that so many Germans view the US and the current administration so critically? What are the topics that Germans are unhappy with? This is where I'd like to take a look at the survey that I asked my German followers to fill out for me. Thank you guys so much to everyone who participated. Of course, this survey isn't representative of all Germans, but I think it's a great way to show a few different opinions and takes on this topic. Just a heads up, some of these responses were written in English, but mostly by non-native speakers. Some were written in German and then translated by me, so if the word choice or grammar sounds a little odd here and there, that's why. I'll also add sub-chapters for this part down below so you can see which topics we'll touch on. The first thing that stood out to me was that out of the over 250 responses, many of which consisted of several paragraphs, by the way, a very large number of them included words like worried, fear, frightened, alarming, scary, or unsettling. One person wrote, "I feel uneasy and slightly frightened. Uneasy when I think about the domestic political consequences of polarization within the US population. Frightened when I think about the geopolitical implications. Geopolitically, I'm concerned about who is positioning themselves as the new world power and what that means for me in Germany and Europe. In terms of US domestic politics, I fear decades of noticeable negative effects on democracy in the US. Could it lead to civil war? Will the US become similar to The Handmaid's Tale under Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance?" And I think this is one of the most prevalent themes among the responses I received. A lot of people talked about how democracy in the US seems to be under attack. Trump has only been president for 6 months, but the US is already on the path to becoming a totalitarian state. I have serious doubts as to whether there will even be elections in 3 years, and if so, in what conditions. The treatment of tourists and even green card holders at the borders is unimaginable and frightening. Seeing how Trump is silencing the media, how he's openly threatening to revoke the citizenship of US citizens, how research is being brought into line, and above all, how people are being arbitrarily arrested on the street just to meet arrest quotas fills me with great concern. The United States of America is on the path from democracy to an authoritarian state. Project 2025, which I read part of, is being implemented word for word. Many people, especially those who are less well off, and women, will lose their freedoms, and in the worst case, their health and their lives. Welcome to Gilead. Another reference to Handmaid's Tale. A real separation of powers no longer exists. People are being thrown into prison or deported without due process, even when there is a court order against it. Democracy is truly in danger. Freedom of speech is at risk when Trump sues newspapers, when they're excluded from press conferences and publicly shamed by Trump. It's horrible. The problem is that hate speech and normalization of almost fascist rhetoric is now totally acceptable. In a Jubilee interview, one guy was proud to say, "Yes, I am a fascist and I don't care being called a Nazi." And that's all because of Trump's rhetoric. Shocking, terrifying, dumbfounding. And as a German who spent 2 years of history class in school solely on Third Reich and the Second World War, it's also so scarily predictable. The patterns are there. This is actually a topic that a lot of my American followers have been asking me about. Do Germans see any parallels to 1930s Germany? And the answer is yes, many Germans definitely do. In this survey alone, I received dozens of answers that mentioned this. Feels like Germany in the 1930s. Nobody is welcome, only if you have money, and the change is so rapid that most people don't understand what's happening. If anyone is wondering how the Nazis were able to come to power in 1933, observe closely. The state is being turned into a fascist idiocracy, controlling large parts of the media, defaming critics, enriching themselves, and cutting people's health care. And the majority of the population seems to be completely okay with it or doesn't dare to disagree. My dad is over 90 years old and tells me that he hears the same kind of rhetoric now from the White House as he heard from the Nazis as a little boy. I'm sad and terrified. I never thought the US would ever head towards a dictatorship, but here we go. When I was younger, I always dreamed of living in the US, or at least saw the US as the ideal country of wealth and living your dream life. However, now that I'm grown up, it changed to the literal opposite. I definitely don't want to live in the US anymore, or even go there anytime soon. With Trump's election, I see a country drifting further.
So guys, the current situation now, everyone is drifting away from Germany. No one wants to have any connection. Either going to Germany or business with, from US. Either going to US or doing business with US. Like everybody is just scared. There is fear, uncertainty. Like it's as if everything is just turning. Oh my goodness. Yo, should we be afraid?
Further and further in a direction reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Boogeymen are being established, illegal immigrants, and dealt with harshly. Again and again, I see supposed ICE agents brutally arresting people. Thoughts of the Gestapo come to mind. I hope that this madness can still be stopped, but the damage has already been done. Government institutions have been de facto dissolved, important personnel dismissed. Educational institutions are being pressured, and books that are ideologically unacceptable are being banned or removed from classrooms. The US is moving further and further away from its ideal of a free country and, in my eyes, is already an autocracy. Now, disagreeing with the president pretty much makes you an enemy of the state. If you speak up, you get canceled, like Stephen Colbert, or outright deported to some concentration camp. Of course, this doesn't happen to everyone who fights back, but the fact that it has happened and continues to happen to some shows that it can happen to everyone. That's a very calculated move. It sows fear. The people are to be frightened into silent acceptance of their fate. It's crazy to me that Trump is still in office. In Germany, we're so sensitive when it comes to the behavior of politicians. Just the suspicion that someone may have cheated in their dissertation can end their entire career. Donald Trump has made countless questionable statements, has been involved in legal problems, and has so much contempt for humanity and is so self-aggrandizing that I can hardly comprehend the difference between the two systems. As a historian, what's been happening since January sends a shiver down my spine. Harassment, persecution, and deportation of migrants, control of universities, influence over the media. The end of late-night TV? What the frick? It's reminiscent of 1933. With his statement that journalists who criticize him are, quote, enemies of the people, Trump has clearly shown that he thinks like a fascist. My father, born in Karlsruhe, was a half-Jewish child Holocaust victim in concentration camps. He lost his entire family on his Jewish side. My mother was a Catholic Swabian girl from Augsburg. So many of the things we see in the US happened in Germany in the 1930s. Everything we hear about, I heard from my Oma, my grandma, already. Her Jewish friends disappearing, the local Metzger, Jewish, being taken by people and deported. Socialist friends sent to Dachau. My husband is Italian, from Rome, and people in the US always think he's Mexican. He travels everywhere with his US passport so he can show his papers. His late mother always said Trump reminded her of Mussolini. Another topic that many brought up were economic consequences. I'm currently experiencing firsthand how even jobs in the pharmaceutical industry that were always considered crisis-proof are now at risk. Many companies are closing locations in Germany, and I'm personally affected myself. I never particularly liked the US, but I did view it as a solid and important partner. That feeling is now gone. They're blackmailing their closest allies and destroying trust that has been built over a long period of time. The arrogance and general behavior of the current administration will damage the country's reputation for years to come. Americans bear responsibility for this with their election decision. The NAFTA deal that Trump himself made in 2018 showed that Trump's word is simply worthless. What he likes today will be old news tomorrow. I also specifically asked people if they'd feel safe traveling to the US this year, and over 71% of people said no, 17% said they'd feel a little nervous but would still travel to the US, and only about 12% said yes, they would feel safe traveling here in 2025. I definitely won't be traveling to the US anytime soon. Same as I wouldn't travel to Russia, Saudi Arabia, or Israel right now. You can't support these nations in good conscience if you care about things like democracy, human rights, etc. It's very disturbing, and some days I think this is it. It feels to me as if I've lost a good friend to a cult. The damage that has already been done, both domestically and internationally, will take a long time to heal. I have friends in the US, but I won't be able to visit them in the foreseeable future. Doing a coast-to-coast road trip one day has always been a bucket list item for me. Probably gonna do it in Canada now. As a white cis woman, I don't have any safety concerns at the moment and would travel to the US if I had planned to. I don't think I would be unwelcome as a tourist because of politics, and the people I would interact with while traveling in the US are not the politicians in Washington. I've been a square dance caller for almost 40 years and have more than enough reason to take a trip to the USA, the home country of my beloved hobby. But at the moment, even if someone paid for my trip and gave me an allowance on top of that, if the horror stories are true that your cell phone is checked at the airport for your social media activity, then I see myself ending up in alligator Auschwitz and never coming out again without ever having seen the inside of a courtroom. We actually wanted to go to the 2028 Olympics in LA, but we're not going to. I'm not spending a 5-figure sum on tickets only to be detained upon arrival because I have a Chinese stamp in my passport. I rejected a research position in the US due to the current situation, despite my affinity for the country and its people. It's a country that frequently deports people illegally, treats trans people inhumanely, and much more. From the outside, the US seems to me like a fascist country that does not protect marginalized groups and in some cases erases them from history. Rewriting the history of the Stonewall riots, for example, shows how urgently this government is trying to push through its agenda, and that it is also willing to erase the visibility of certain people in history to do so. I'm very concerned about it, and I'm shocked how accepted the situation is for millions of Americans. The signs of growing fascism are so clear, open, and in plain sight that I don't understand how people can overlook them, especially since there's history class in the US, which absolutely covers World War II and how dictatorships emerge. Of course, the USA is not there yet, but the beginnings are absolutely obvious. They then go on to list all of the signs of fascism.
Oh my god.
Mind you, these are only a few of the many, many responses I received. A few other topics that were touched on. Trump has managed to change the media landscape like no other, away from fact-based reporting toward completely emotional reporting. This problem existed before, but it's reached a new level due to his election campaigns and lies. It has become more important to say something loud than to say something true. And our German political parties have also adopted this miserable style of debate culture. They too are focusing on talking badly about the other side instead of talking about problems and, above all, solutions. Abolishing the suicide hotline is absolutely despicable. First, they make queer people's lives hell and portray them as mentally ill, and then they don't even offer help? As an outsider, I have the impression that life is becoming increasingly uncertain and expensive for Americans. For example, when it comes to healthcare. I'm autistic and saw the plans of Robert Kennedy. The US government wants to behave in a way with people who have disabilities like the people did in the 1920s. The disabled people were mistreated heavily in that era. In my opinion, the World Cup should be held in another country. Otherwise, they'll risk being left without any foreign audience. I just don't understand why Republicans follow Trump so unconditionally, even after all the scandals, lies, and attacks on democratic institutions. Surely there must be someone among them who views this critically. politically? Why do we almost never hear critical voices from Republicans in Congress? Have they really abandoned all their principles? Or is it just about retaining power and a fear of Trump's fan base? What surprises me the most is how little public protest there has been against him and his administration. It feels like people are just trying to sit out the 4 years, either because they're afraid of Trump or because they've resigned themselves to the situation. As an employee of a US-based company, you can see that Trump's way of thinking is gaining more and more ground. Topics such as inclusion are no longer communicated openly at the company's US locations, only behind closed doors. Meanwhile, the German locations of the company are hoisting the pride flag more than ever before. The them against us mentality never brought anything good, and it won't be any different this time. On a personal level, I was shocked by the fact that in order to get a student visa, you have to make your social media accounts public now. I used to be an au pair in the US myself and was on that same visa. With funding being reduced and cut, I'm shocked to realize how financially dependent we are on the US in so many areas. Most importantly, the World Health Organization. The feeling I have the most, even more than anger and bewilderment, is disappointment. As a teenager in the 80s, the USA were the country in the world for me, an absolute beacon of adventure and dreams and coolness. We went to the States every summer over a span of almost 10 years, and I can still say these vacations were the most memorable in my life. I desperately wanted to be an American. I did not want to leave and go back to school in Germany. I loved everything about the USA. The music, the movies, the sports teams, TV, food, commercials, cars, everything. All of that is either gone or can only be viewed with a bitter taste. I'm so incredibly disappointed in the country and people I held in such high regard. They have completely lost their way. Or, and that would be even more awful, I always had blinders on and they were like this all along. Out of the more than 250 responses I received, only 5 included support for the current administration, such as this one, which seems to be from a German who actually lives here in the US. What situation? Thank God the illegal immigrants are finally being sent home again. They receive more money from the state than retirees on Social Security. They have no right to it, even if they have 4 wives and 10 children. Germany has the same problems, and many seniors, women, and children are afraid to wait in the pedestrian zone or at the train station late at night. Every German can vacation here in the US without any problems. Slowly, it's becoming safer than it was 2 to 4 years ago. Then again, here's another German immigrant who feels differently. After 13 years, I will have to mentally prepare myself for the possibility of having to move back to Germany. As a green card holder, I'm here legally, but the risk of leaving the country even for a short time and then not being able to return is too great for me. I also consider the risk of starting the naturalization process to be too high. In addition, after 23 years in the renewable sector, I hardly have a long future here in the US now that the big beautiful bill passed. I'm eagerly awaiting the midterm results. Last but not least, I also received a couple responses like this one. Concerned enough not to want to answer openly in a questionnaire on the subject. And when I posted about this survey and that I was planning this video, there were even people telling me that it's not safe for me to talk about this. Okay, so I know this was pretty long, but these were truly just a few of many, many responses I received. I genuinely appreciate everyone who took the time to write down their thoughts, and I hope this video helped give you some insight into how Germany and Germans are talking about the current developments in the US. If this is something you're interested in the future, I can only recommend Ali to you guys. This is her channel here on YouTube, but she's also very big on TikTok and Instagram. Her handle is USA Mom in Germany. She's an American who lives in Munich, my hometown, and makes very educational videos and articles on her Substack about US propaganda and cultural differences, and she also regularly talks about German media coverage about the US. If you have any requests for video topics that you'd like me to cover here on my channel in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below. And if you enjoy what I do on here, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's entirely free, or supporting me with a small donation via PayPal, Ko-fi.com, the Super Thanks button down below, or by becoming a Patreon supporter. You can also find my videos on Spotify, by the way, if you prefer listening to them in the background, especially for these longer ones. I feel like it comes in quite handy. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!
Cheers! Yeah, guys, I know this is quite long, but guys, share your thoughts in the comment section. Let us know what you have to say. Right now, it's as if US is the new Afghanistan where people want to go to. Oh, guys, what do you have to say? Please share with us in the comment section. I don't want it to be longer, so go have the day you deserve, and we'll keep living under commanded places. In the comment section, please.